A wedding is a beautiful thing. It is the celebration of two people's love and those two people committing to each other. It is also every boy's dream to be married to a handsome girl of their dreams. David was excited but also nervous. It was Friday, a week before his wedding. His friends were planning a bachelor party for him and he was busy getting ready for a night out on the town. At 5'9" David was tall and beautiful. His platinum blonde hair fell down to just above his shoulders, framing his face. For the evening, David had decided to wear a sparkly red spaghetti strap dress with red heels. David had painted his finger and toenails in a matching shade and also his lips. He also used eyeshadow on his eyelids. After posing a little in the mirror, he declared that he was super sexy and ready for whatever the boys had planned for him. As he headed down to meet his friends, he thought about Kelly, his fiancée and wife-to-be. Kelly was just over 5 feet. While David was tall and thin, Kelly was short but muscular. Kelly and her friends had decided to hold her bachelorette party in Las Vegas, and while Kelly couldn't promise David that there wouldn't be any strip clubs, she did promise him that she wouldn't get physical with any of the strippers. David had laughed at that and told her to relax and go and have fun. Besides, he and the boys were probably planning something just as raunchy. David's friends were in the lounge waiting for him to appear. As he walked into the room, he was filled with compliments. All of his friends were telling him how sexy he looked. David's best friend and best man Josh cleared his throat and announced his plans for the evening. Josh was just as good-looking as David, his ginger hair framing his face and his black halter dress made him look very sexy. Josh was the wild one of the group and a bit of a slut. So it made sense that he had planned a scavenger hunt that would end with all of them going to a women's strip club. The boys all squealed and giggled as Josh announced his plans. They all took a glass of champagne, toasting David before drinking. Soon there was a honk outside the door. "That'll be the limo," Josh said. The boys looked at him surprised, and then they all dashed out to the limo, grabbing coats and purses as they left. In the limo, Josh told the limo driver their destination and then handed David a checklist. On it was a list of things he had to do, ranging from kissing a girl who had the same name as Kelly to showing a girl his bra. The tasks got more risque as the list went on. David read the list out to his friends and they all burst out laughing. The limo eventually arrived at the destination and the 5 friends got out to begin their hunt. David decided to start off easy. As they entered the first club, David spotted a cute girl standing at the bar. He sashayed over to him and pulled him into a kiss. David then turned around, grinning to his friends who were cheering him on and taking photos. This is going to be a good night, David thought to himself as he got ready for the next task. The night progressed and David and his friends got drunker and drunker. One of the tasks on the list was to give one of his friends a lap dance. David giggled as he walked over to George and then started to perform. While he wasn't a stripper himself, he wasn't new to lap dancing. He often performed for Kelly in the bedroom wearing sexy lingerie before they had sex. Eventually, David managed to complete all of the tasks, and so he and his friends staggered back to the limo, which took them to the strip club. The boys took seats at the front of the stage and watched the women on stage perform. When they took off their shirts to show off their breasts, the boys screamed and wolf whistled. One of the performers came and gave David a lap dance of his own, and while David enjoyed it, he didn't get too involved because if Kelly had promised him, then he had to do the same. The night soon ended and everyone had had a good time. David's friends all hugged and kissed him before they left, wishing him luck for the wedding next week. Josh was stopping the night, so both Josh and David headed upstairs to bed. The next morning, David woke up with a huge hangover. He grabbed his head as he sat up in bed and waited for the room to stop spinning. He then grabbed his pink phone off his bedside table and sent Kelly a text hoping that she had a good night and that he missed her. He got a reply back saying that she had fun and was missing him too. David smiled at that. For the week up to the wedding they had decided that they wouldn't see each other, so that when they did see each other on the wedding day it would be even more magical. David was staying at his parents' house. There was a knock on the bedroom door. "Come in," David said. It was his father, dressed in a flowery nightgown carrying a tray. "I'd thought you'd like breakfast in bed," he said. "Thanks, Dad," David replied, smiling. His dad was always so caring. His father placed the tray in front of him and David started to tuck in while his dad sat on the side of the bed watching his son eat. "So how was last night? Did you boys have fun?" he asked. David stopped eating for a moment thinking. To be honest, he couldn't really remember a lot of it, but what he did was fun, so he replied, "Yeah, it was great, thanks." "How's Josh?" David asked of his friend. "Oh, he's still sleeping. Sprawled out on the bed like a girl." "You boys must have had a lot to drink," his father said with a smile. David started to laugh but then stopped when it made his head hurt. "Yeah, we did. I've got a pretty bad hangover," David admitted. His dad nodded. "Well, you two relax for the day. You don't need to do anything today." "Are you sure?" David asked. "Yes. I'll be fine." "Okay, Dad." David finished eating and his dad took the tray away. David then yawned and then said, "I'm going back to bed." He then lay back down and went to sleep. The week passed by slowly for David. For one thing, he missed Kelly, but he kept telling himself that when he saw Kelly standing at the altar, it would be worth it. David busied himself making the last-minute preparations for the wedding and making sure that everything was in place. They were going to have their wedding at the local church, which was a beautiful building. Soon the big day had arrived and David was a nervous wreck. He was finally getting married. David got dressed, simply throwing on a jumper and pink sweatsuit bottoms. When he came downstairs he found that his father had prepared breakfast. David was so nervous he wasn't sure that he could eat, but his father told him that he must. So David forced himself to eat. He was glad that he did, as it made him feel better. Josh and his friends arrived to help David get ready for the day. Josh had brought his phone, which had a playlist on it. He set it up and then the boys started gossiping, telling each other stories, trying to help David feel as calm as possible. David was actually beginning to enjoy himself and soon he was laughing and sharing stories with his friends. Josh had hired a makeup artist to help David with his makeup, and when he arrived, he got straight to work. David wore his hair in a sleek updo and his makeup he wore light red lipstick and a bit of blush on his cheeks. Soon it was time to put on his gown. It was a beautiful white A-line gown which had a sweetheart neckline and a lacy pattern to it. David then put on his veil and grabbed his bouquet and the party headed outside to take photos. George was an aspiring wedding photographer, so he had offered to take the photos. David and his parents posed for the camera and then took some photos with his friends. It was time to leave. David had hired 2 cars, one for him and his parents and another for his groomsmen. They were both classic-looking black cars and they had both been decorated for the wedding. David and his parents headed towards their car. His mother in her suit got in first and then his father. As David got in, he turned around, sat down backwards and then swung his legs into the car. Arriving at the church, David got out followed by his parents. His father gave him a big hug and he already had tears running down his cheeks. His father then headed inside to take his seat followed by the groomsmen who went to take their places. That left David alone with his mother. His mother was a stern woman and David towered over her, but David could sense an amount of pride in his mother as she looked him up and down. "You are a beautiful young man," she said. David nodded, smiling. "I just want you to know that I'm very proud of you and that I love you," she said. "Aw, thanks, Mom. I love you." He pulled his mother into a deep hug. Tears were starting to fill his eyes, but he quickly wiped them away. David's mother offered him her arm and David took it. They walked into church. David could feel his nerves rising. As they entered the church, everyone stood up. David smiled as he and his mother walked up the aisle to "Here Comes the Groom." Looking down the aisle, he saw Kelly standing by the altar waiting for him, with a huge smile on her face. David smiled back. She looked so handsome standing there in her tuxedo. As David continued walking, he knew he was marrying the right woman. And in that point of time, he was the happiest boy in the world.